Hi, I'm Rob,
I'm Lily.
and welcome to Hazel's Flight School. Today we're going to be talking about Piedmont Reds, and we're going to be featuring the three classic great red wines coming out of Piedmont. Lily, what do you know about Piedmont Reds?
Same thing I knew about whites. Piedmont's in Italy, and I know the wines are good. That's all I got for you.
All right, fair enough. Now, those of you who are familiar with the Piedmont region will almost certainly know about those mega Barolo and Barbaresco, those great Nebbiolo that come from that part of the world. And they can cost dozens, hundreds, even thousands of dollars a bottle. Now, we won't be opening one of those today, but we will be talking about Nebbiolo. The three most important grapes coming out of Piedmont these days are Dolcetto, otherwise known as Little Sweet One, Barbera, and of course, the Great Nebbiolo. Any questions before we get started?
Is it true that Barolo is classically paired with steak?
I would say steak is a classic match for Barolo. The issue with Barolo, or the thing with Barolo, is that the Nebbiolo grape can be very high acid, very high tannin, but somehow elegant at the same time. It can bring the best of all worlds sometimes. So these wines often need something to kind of tame the sort of almost ferocious structure of that wine. And steak is a classic for that. When we get those really big tannins, as we know from talking before, fatty proteins, fats and things like that are really good at mitigating those tannins. And Barolo, especially young, and Barbaresco to a slightly lesser extent, they can be downright fierce when they're young, often demanding a bit of age. We're going to explore a Nebbiolo that's going to be much more approachable, ideally at a younger age. But we're going to start with Dolcetto. As I said, otherwise known sometimes as the Little Sweet One. That would literally be Dolcetto in Italian vernacular. This is a grape that's typically known for a bit low acid and a bit high tannin. Hence the Dolcetto. When they taste them in the vineyard, the acid isn't ripping your teeth out as you taste it. And so that's kind of how it got the name. We're also talking about a Dolcetto that comes from a tiny little sub-area in Piedmont called Dogliani. Now, most Dolcetto can drink fairly light, but the ones that come from Dogliani, and for the record, they don't always say Dolcetto on them, they just say Dogliani. So it's kind of one of those things you gotta know. They could be a bit bigger. And we were kind of debating about where to put it in the lineup, but because it should still be the lowest acid of the three grapes, that's where we're going to start. Yes, and this definitely smells dark and deep. Kind of want to dive into this thing. I know what I want to say, but you go first.
Cranberries? Raw cranberries is my impression of that.
Red fruit, for me, it's got a little darker tone as well, maybe a slight earthy note to it. But let's talk about the structure. How does this drink in a physical sense?
Well, there are some, it's tannic and acidic at the same time. It contradicts itself.
All right, it feels like it's got a little bit of acidity, and again, relatively speaking, it's low acid compared to the other two, but yeah, it's got a nice kick to it. And yeah, those tannins came on right away, didn't they, right? And we will see that again in the Dogliani parts, a little more pronounced there and a little deeper, a little darker. Now that's what I'm finding here is a bit of a darker edge to the fruit, a little more depth than what we typically see. But that's good, straight up and down classic Dolcetto. Yeah, nice kind of bright fruit, but surprisingly good structure.
Yeah.
All right, let's get some Barbera going here. I like Barbera when I'm recommending wines to people and they ask for a red wine, but they don't know what's for dinner. Barbera is an absolute go-to. It's a super versatile red wine. It can pair with so many fruits. When they're well made, they're balanced. They're not too big, they're not too light. Super versatile in that sense. So Barbera can often be a real no-brainer go-to if you just don't really know what red to get, but you know you need to get a red. What do you think?
It reminds me of like sun-warmed strawberries and some pomegranate definitely punchier on the acid.
Yeah.
Super good.
Yeah, super good. And kind of juicy. That acidity tends to be a little juicier, keeps a lot of freshness in the fruit here. This is a really good example. We really like Grimaldi, by the way. Now, this is Barbera di Alba, and in a lot of cases, what you're going to see is you're going to see Barbera di Alba, Barbera from Alba. You'll also see Barbera di Asti, Barbera from Asti. And we talked about Asti a little bit in our white video. Alba and Asti sort of sub-areas of Piedmont. And it's important that we make that distinction. In the wine world, we feel like this is an important distinction, and we get asked a lot about, should I be getting Barbera from Alba? Should I be getting Barbera from Asti? Now, typically speaking, painting with a very broad brush, the Barbera from Asti is considered maybe a little bit on a higher level overall. And the reason for that is that they grow a lot of Barbera in Asti, so they get to put it in the best sites. Now, historically, Alba includes areas like Barolo and parts of Barbaresco, and because you can plant to Nebbiolo in those vineyards and make more money making Barolo, the better vineyard sites in Alba have typically been uprooted from Barbera and planted with Nebbiolo. So, by and large, we would think Asti might be a little better, and that's just because the vineyard sites are a little better.
Yeah, so that distinction comes from an economic decision on the winemaker's part.
Largely, yes. Exactly right. Nebbiolo in Alba is worth more than Barbera in Alba, by and large. But we can get great examples from Alba. Some producers have committed to keeping those really great old vines and those really good sites for Barbera, and we look for those. Come and ask us about that. We'll show you the good stuff. All right, so we've been talking Nebbiolo. Let's get to it. Any questions before we taste?
No, but I'm excited. I don't think I've tried Nebbiolo before.
Really?
Well, I probably haven't. I just didn't know.
All right, fair enough. So, Lily, first impressions, what do you think of Nebbiolo?
I really like it, and I also appreciate the way you've staged this tasting from least to most acidic, so you can compare in a scale way, because it feels like every step we've taken, it's been basically a more acidic and more pronounced version of the last wine. Like, they all have similar characteristics. You can tell that they're all from Piedmont, and it's cool to get to compare wines from the same region.
Nice. It's almost like we know what we're doing. So for the record, the grape we're talking about is Nebbiolo here. So Barolo and Barbaresco, those great wines, are in fact made from Nebbiolo, the grape. And they are considered the greatest expressions. As we talked about Alba and Asti, I should also point out that there's a much larger, even overarching area there for some of these grapes, and that is called the Langhe, L-A-N-G-H-E, and you will find a lot of Nebbiolo labeled that way, Langhe Nebbiolo. Barolo and Barbaresco often very dialed in their vineyards, by the way, so you can get down to these fine details of how it grows on these soils or that soils or this elevation or that slope, or it faces east or west or what have you. And it can become a little bit confusing, actually. So, and for the record also, those wines can be massive and often require a fair bit of age. So if you're looking to get started with Nebbiolo, and particularly Nebbiolo from Piedmont, a really good place to start, even if nothing else, to find out if you even like the grape and you like how it drinks, start with the Langhe Nebbiolos. You'll get a really good idea of what that grape is about without paying Barolo tax, Barbaresco tax. You can pay a lot for those wines. Give yourself a sense of what Nebbiolo is all about, and then you can take that deeper dive. Any other questions?
I don't think so, Rob.
All right. Outstanding. 3 classic reds from a classic northern Italian region. Dolcetto, Barbera, either Alba or Asti, and Nebbiolo, the 3 great reds of the Piedmont region of Italy. Special thanks to André Siimpson and Synergy Fine Wines, a Colorado company, for bringing us their expertise and the wines today.
Thanks for tuning in to Flight School. Subscribe to us on YouTube and come fly with us again next time.